after controlling all the kingdoms by the rulers and the Nawabs, Britishers look towards the countryside, that means the village area, how they can get more and more revenue and how they can control the village side. So in this chapter we are going to study about how Britishers influenced or how they take over countryside or the village area, right? So for that, after the Battle of Buxar, Britishers became the Diwan of Bengal. Like how they became the Diwan of Bengal? That is what the company became the Diwan on 12 August 1765. Now what do you mean by Diwan? Diwan means the right to collect the revenue. Means Britishers got the Diwani right, or they have got the right to collect the revenue of Bengal, right? So how they have got, during that time Mughal Emperor gave this authority to Robert Clive to collect the revenue, and then he became in charge of that. So now what happened after that? What was the benefit to the British after getting the Diwani right? So once they became the Diwan, they became the chief financial administrator. They became the chief financial administrator, means that entire money or the control of the money came into the hand of the British. So now they have got two objectives with having the Diwani rights. One, after becoming the financial administrator, they have to administrating the land, that is work, that is one work they have got, to administrating the land. Another work they have got, that is organizing the revenue resources. First, to administer the land as well as to organize the revenue resources whatever been collected. Now with these two, they have kept in mind with an objective. Now what was the objective of them with these all things? So basically there were four objectives when they became the financial administrator or wholesale in charge they have become. So first was to get enough revenue. Enough revenue means more and more money they have to collect. See, we have read in the second chapter that they have come as a trader. So still, what is the work of a trader? To earn more and more money. So that objective they did that they try to get enough money or enough revenue. First objective. The second objective was to meet the growing expenses of the company. Now, whatever the expenses of the company is being held, that has to be compensated, has to be meet out with the revenue which they collected, rather than the money or the gold and silver they brought from the Britain. So this is what the second objective. Now let us come to the third objective. Third objective was buy products they needed. Means they have to, they should get the freedom, see whatever they want, whatever the product they want, these raw materials like cotton, silk, as well as spices or whatever they want as a raw material, they can take it, right? And then they can sell, means whatever they want to sell in the ready-made good, as it was the industrial revolution also started, so machine-made good also they can sell it whatever they wanted. So this is how we can see that there is a drastic change came after getting the Diwani right, Robert Clive. It was totally a bad luck for the Bengal, because now Bengal, it was difficult for Bengal to meet out their expenses, because entire money was taken by the British. Now revenue for the company. Now Britishers, when they came here, their main objective was to do the business. They came as a trader. So the mentality of the trading was not gone, even though they have got the Diwani right. So let us see as a trader how they see that instead of making revenue policies or assessment, what they did, they focused on the large revenue income, more and more income they should get, and for that what they neglected regular system of assessment and collection, right? To proper assessment and collection they forget. The objective was to collect more and more revenue. So what happened? Very soon the cost things doubled. So whatever they imported, the cost doubled. Initially, when they bought the things from India, they used to buy in place of gold and silver. So but what they did here, now they stopped importing with gold and silver, what came from the Britain. In place of that, what they started utilizing? They started utilizing revenue amount for it. Revenue amount which they collected after getting the Diwani, right? That amount they started utilizing to raw materials like cotton, silk, or whatever they required, right? As well as I told you that as they whatever they wanted to sell, whatever they wanted to buy, so for that they started using the things in their own way, the financial aspects, right? So let us see what impact, what result came to Bengal. So as we see the result, first of all, economic crisis in Bengal. Definitely, entire money was in the hand of British, first thing. Second thing, that the gold and silver which was brought, which enhanced the financial condition of Bengal, now it was stopped, and in place of that the money which should be utilized for the development of Bengal, it was now being utilized as for the raw material for the British. So automatically there will be an economic crisis in Bengal. Then second thing, what happened to the artisans? Now artisans started deserting the village. Why? Because whatever they wanted to sell, they have to sell according to the British, and the price was very, very low, right? So they were under pressure. Apart from that, when we talk about peasants were also not able to pay the dues. So what happened? They have to also take the loans. So they were also suffering. So this was a negative impact of the Diwani right which Britishers got. But at the same time, what happened? In 1770, terrible famine took place which killed approximately 10,000 people. That means almost 1/3 of the population was wiped out. So this was a drastic unluck, or you can say a bad luck for the Bengal after the Diwani right was given to the British. Now as we have seen in our previous video, how after getting the Diwani right, Britishers started exploiting people of Bengal, and lot of revenue they collected. They are more focused on collecting the revenue rather than to thinking to improve or assess the land. And in this way Bengal started facing economic crisis, and peasants were also not happy, as they have to take the loans for paying the rent, as well as artisans also deserted the village. So Britishers felt that they need to have an improvement in the agriculture so that they can get more and more revenue. So they started working on it. So after a long debate of 2 decades, they have come up with some policies. So that is what we are going to discuss here. So the very first policy which they have introduced was the permanent settlement. Now in this policy, what happened? It was introduced in 1793 by Charles Cornwallis, right? And according to this policies, the revenue, we are talking about revenue was supposed to be fixed, never to be increased in the future. That is why the name is the permanent settlement, right? And the in charge to collect the revenue was the zamindar. In this way, the zamindar played a link between the farmers and the Britishers. So zamindar collected the revenue, but the revenue was very, very high. So again, it created a lot of problem for the farmers initially. But later on, what happened? As the revenue was fixed, so over a period of time, the amount became less to be given to the British, and more advantage came to the zamindar. So zamindar stopped investing money for the improvement of the agriculture. So that is why this policy failed. Then Britishers felt to have another policy. The second policy which they introduced, or 2 alternative policies they have introduced, that was the Meherwari system. Now in Meherwari system, the word Meher means village. So that means in this Meherwari system, village headmen, means all the farmers, they gave the revenue to the village headmen, and village headmen played as a mediator between the British and the farmers. So village headmen collected the revenue. Apart from that, this policy was introduced in 1822 by Holt Mackenzie, right? And again we can see the revenue pattern. Now as it was fixed and permanent settlement faced a problem, so this time Britishers have made a system that regularly the revenue will be revised and then again new revenue will be imposed. That means revenue was revised periodically, maybe after 2 or 3 years, right? So this is how it was. The terms was little bit better for from the permanent settlement in point of view of the British or for the British, not for the farmers. Now let us come to the third. Now third is the Riot Wali system. Here the word Riot means farmers. Now again here why? Here the revenue was given to the British by riots directly, farmers directly. Now it was introduced in South India. Basically first Alexander Reed was the person who started this kind of a settlement in a very small scale. Later on the Thomas Munro, he has started in a very larger scale in 1820. That is why this system is also known as a Munro system, right? So this is how we can see that the policy which was introduced for the countryside, as the chapter is ruling the countryside, Britishers started getting control on the agricultural land of India, right? But now what was the problem faced by the people or the peasants, right? Let us see here. So problem basically in permanent settlement, the problem was that revenue was very high and now the lot of power came into the hand of zamindar. So they started exploiting people, collecting a heavy amount. Though they need not to give a lot of amount to the British, but they themselves started taking in this. They started renting out their lands, right? Now let us see overall the problem which all the three policies farmers faced. One was revenue was high. The revenue was really very high, so it was very difficult for the farmer to pay the revenue. And especially when the atmosphere or the climate was reverse, means no rain or in the time of drought or flood, then also they have to pay the revenue. So this is what a very disappointing for the peasants. Then next is clutches of the loan. Now if they were not able to pay the loan, so now what pay the revenue, so what happened, they have to take the loan. And the loan, the interest on the loan was very high, which they could not pay. So they were always, once they took the loan, the cycle of loan was never ending, and that is how the farmers were trapped in the clutches of the loan. Then third is many times which happened in the case when they were not able to pay the loan or the revenue, the land which they tilled for generation, the land they have to give up in place of the loan on the revenue. So this is how those farmers became the landless, and this was again very disappointing for the farmer. So overall these were policies were good for British, but it was not at all good for the Indian farmers. Now after the policies made by the British, we have seen in the previous video, now we are going to see in this that Britishers felt to earn more. So now they started thinking that not only collecting the revenue from the countryside, they can also grow some of the crops which is highly demanded in Europe, and they can export it and earn more and more money, right? So they started growing crops for Europe. So during that time, initially they started with opium and indigo that they grew and they started the export, and they got a better response. We are going to study of indigo in detail later on. Now apart from that, when they got success, then they started farmers to forcing to grow more crops like jute in Bengal, sugarcane in United Provinces, which is at present we call it Uttar Pradesh, then wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra, tea in Assam, etc. Right? So many crops. So these were the crops, these are also known as the cash crops, which gave them lot of money when they exported it. Now, indigo, they have got a special focus on indigo because indigo was highly in demand. So let us see indigo in two terms. First, why indigo? Why Britishers wanted or forced people to grow indigo? Number one, it grows in the tropic region and India's climate was very perfect to grow indigo. Right? Second, indigo was highly in demand for the dyes. Now it was industrial revolution started, and for the textile mills, the color for the dye which comes from indigo was of a best part. One more crop was there, that was worth, which did not give so good color like it was by the indigo. Third thing, best in India. Now the indigo which is produced in India was best in the world, and India was a colony of Britain, so British wanted to utilize its maximum. Right? Now let us see that for export purpose. Basically their objective to grow indigo not only to utilize in the Britain textile industries but also to export to other parts of the world. That is why they focus more on growing indigo. That was the reason why. Now let us come to second question, that how indigo was grown, how the cultivation of indigo was done. So initially they started by the two methods. One was niche, in Hindi niche means apna, right? So niche. So first one method was niche, another method was riyoti. So let us understand what is the difference between niche and riyoti. Now in niche system, planters means people, they purchase the land and they themselves get the crops grown or get it done. With the help, they hire laborers to get the work done. Basically they did it themselves. Right? So they had a land and they got everything done by themselves. They took a help of the laborers, but they got everything done by themselves. So this is what planters grow themselves, first thing. Second, they hire laborers to do that work. Right? Second is riyoti system. And now you know what is the meaning of riyoti. Riyoti means riyot, the thing which is done by riyot. So here riyot used to do that. That means they were forced to do. They were not interested to grow indigo. We will come to know why they were not interested. But basically they were forced to grow indigo, and at least every farmer have to grow at least 25% of the land with indigo. And for that the indigo seed will be given by the British, or they gave the loan for it to doing that. So now let us see, as I told you, about the problem. So let us see what was the problem in both the systems. So when we talk about the problem, and let us see the problem which niche, while doing niche cultivation, what was the problem faced by? Number one, the lack of land. Because most of the land, agricultural fertile land, was utilized to grow rice, right? Especially in Bengal. So there was no land left. So there was a problem of this. Second problem which in niche they face, as I told you, they hired laborer. So they could not get the laborer. Why? Because the farmers or the laborers were not free, and even the plows were not free. Why? Because indigo and rice grow at the same time, right? The time period is same time or same type of climate is required, everything is same is required. So during the cultivation or during the harvest or during the sowing time of rice, indigo also has to be done. So the laborers or the farmers were busy in growing rice, as well as the plows were busy in the cultivation of rice. So it was a shortage, and that is why it was very difficult for the niche or for the planters to do the indigo niche. So the another method they adopted, riyoti, which solved their problem about land, about laborers, about the plows. Because in this system, labor, they were forced, farmers were forced to grow the indigo. That means their land they will get. Second problem, they will not be facing the problem of the labor, because the farmer itself has to do that. Then third problem was about the plows. Again the same thing, the farmers have got the plows to cultivate rice. So means total of the land, 25% of the land they have to grow indigo for the British. It was compelled, they were forced to do it. So now let us see what the problem faced by the farmer in this. Now in this, Britishers have got no problem. Here the problem is with farmer. Number one, like as Britishers gave them loan. So the loan was, the interest on the loan was very, very high. So they were not able to pay. So the cycle of loan was continued. So once they were given the loan, they were not able to get rid of that loan. So this was the one major problem. Second problem was the indigo which was grown. The cost of the indigo which was given to the farmer was very, very low, and Britishers sold it in a very higher price. So this was the second problem. Third problem was that the soil, the indigo was grown on the same soil where rice grows. But once indigo is grown, the root goes so deep that it takes all the nutrition or all the fertility of the soil, and the rice cannot be grown on the soil where once indigo has been grown. So that is why farmers felt that rice is a crop to provide, to remove hunger, or it was very essential. It was a staple food, but at the same time indigo was comparatively less of use, so they were not ready or to grow indigo, but they were forced and they were compelled to do so. They got very annoyed, but they have to do so. Now, as we have seen that British felt that they can grow the crop which is required in the Europe so that they can earn more money. And in that we have seen that they gave more emphasis on growing indigo. And also we have come across that indigo was not at all good for the Indian farmers, as it spoiled the soil, as well as it trapped the loan cycle, as well as that farmers have wanted to grow rice but they couldn't grow that, right? So all these things made farmers very annoyed. Not only the farmers, the zamindars as well as village headmen, all of them were very disappointed with the planters. Now there is a slight difference between the planters. All the planters were not in the British government. So these planters were the Britishers who came, or Scottish people who came from another country. They purchased the land and they started the work. So they are nothing to relate with government. They were apart from the government. So let us see that in this anger how Riots fought for, or they started a rebellion. Right? They rebelled against the condition which was happened. Now, so now you can see what they did. Now this rebellion started in it was known as a blue rebellion. Why? Because indigo was in blue color, so it was known as a blue rebellion, right? And it started in March 1859. The blue rebellion started in March 1859. Now how it started, how this rebellion started, let us see now. What did Riots did? Now Riots, first they refused to pay the rent. Right, the rent which planters wanted, so they refused to give that, as well as now they were scared also that they can be attacked, but still they all were determined that they are going to start the rebellion. So first they refused to pay the rent. Second, they attacked the indigo factory, because once the indigo was grown, then the blue color or the dye was made in the factories. So indigo factories were attacked. Right? Then the people, those who worked for the planters, they were socially boycotted. Means all the people, those who work for the planters, people started ignoring them or boycotting them. Right? Then comes this is a term we use. Gomathas were the term used for the agent of the planters. So whenever the agent of the planters, they came to ask something or to collect or to give the loan to grow the indigos, and they were beaten by the Riots. This is how the rebellion started. Now the question comes that these Riots, if they can do this thing, if they were so courageous, why they were quiet earlier? Why they were suffering the problem? Now this is very true question. So why they do in 1859? Because this time they got the support of three strong support they got. One was they were supported by the zamindar. Now zamindars themselves were very much angry with the planters, because planters were becoming more power, or they were showing they have got the more power than the zamindar, so they started dominating them. Similarly with the village headman, the power of the village headman was dominated by the power of the planters. Then comes to the British government. Now it is very much amazing that why British government. Now when you will study about revolt of 1857, so in revolt of 1857, Britishers understood the power of the Indian, and they don't want that any other rebellion to take place. And in that, after the revolt of 1857, they have made certain changes, certain lenient attitude towards the Indians, right? So for that aspect, they have got, imagine the Riots have got little bit idea that they can get the support of the British government, right? Now let us see what happened next. So after the rebellion, what happened to stop this rebellion or to try to find out, Britishers, what they did, British government had set up a Indigo Commission. Means a committee was set up to find out what is wrong, what was the problem, who is guilty, who was not. Right? So what was the conclusion, what was the result after the investigation? with the Indigo Commission, what came? First was the planters were felt guilty. Why they were guilty? Because the method they have adopted, the very strict method which they have adopted towards the farmer and the way how they wanted the indigo to be grown, that was totally wrong. So this was the first thing of the Indigo Commission inquiry. Second was indigo was not good for the riots. Why? Because when they grow rice, it will provide food for the people. Whereas when they will grow indigo, once we already know the soil will be spoiled, as well as the amount which they get after the growing indigo, that was very, very low. So they were not able to survive or to manage their family. So it was not at all good for the peasants, right? So let us come to the third, what they have said. Now this time it was said that peasants can refuse. What they can refuse? They can refuse to grow indigo. As we have seen earlier, that peasants were forced to grow indigo. So now, according to this inquiry, according to result of this inquiry, now the peasants can refuse to grow indigo. They cannot be forced, right? So this much is clear. Now let us come to next point. That existing, but there was a condition that whatever the contract they have signed, maybe of 2 years or 1 year or maybe 3 years, whatever. So whatever the contract they have signed, they have to fulfill that contract, and afterwards they can refuse to grow indigo or they can be free from it. So this was the result. So now, according to all these things, what happened? Do you think farmers will be agreed to do or to grow indigo? Obviously not, because we have seen that they have started a rebellion against that. So in this way, what happened? Indigo plantation or the production in Bengal collapsed. So let us see what was the reason for the collapse. It was almost banned. The indigo cultivation or forced by the planters, it was banned in Bengal. Next, the discovery of the synthetic dyes. Now synthetic dyes means what? That time artificial color also came, which replaced. So the indigo was very, very expensive in comparison to the synthetic dyes. So people felt to buy synthetic dyes in comparison of the indigo color. Then next is, now what happened to the planters? As their income was totally finished, as it was collapsed in Bengal. So what they did, the planters, they shifted to Bihar. And many years they did the cultivation there, the same method they have adopted. And again in Bihar, farmers were very disappointed, like we have seen in Bengal. So what happened? When Mahatma Gandhi returned in India in 1915, so very, very next year, after touring entire country, very next year in 1916, what happened? Mahatma Gandhi supported the peasants, indigo peasants in Champaran, in Bihar. So as a result, the indigo was banned in Bihar also.